The US FDA has approved a COVID-19 vaccine from Johnson & Johnson. It's the third to win approval in the country. John Terrett reports.
The Johnson & Johnson vaccine offers much promise to Americans. When it's finally flowing into arms here, it will increase the number of vaccinations by around 25%. It's the only one-dose vaccine Americans are being offered, and it can be stored at normal temperatures. On Friday, the Food and Drug Administration Advisory Panel met all day to hear some of the specifics about the drug. It's 85% effective in severe cases, 72% effective in the USA, and 66% effective around the world. But it is 100% effective in keeping people alive and keeping them out of hospital. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, which are already flowing here in the United States, were tested within the borders of the country. Another difference with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is that it was tested here at home, but also in Latin America, mainly in Brazil and in South Africa. It's effective on the variants. On Sunday, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the south of the country, will meet to take one more decision, and that will be who should be the priority cases who receive the Johnson & Johnson vaccine once it is widely available. J&J say they have 3.9 million vaccines on trucks ready to go out on Monday. It's disappointing to some that it's not 10 million, which had been anticipated. But the vaccine news generally in America seems to be getting better and better. Only in the last week or so, the Pfizer vaccine was approved for storage at normal temperatures. Prior to that, it had been thought it needed to be stored at super cool temperatures. So now there are 3 vaccines available to Americans, and soon there will be a 4th when the AstraZeneca vaccine is approved in the coming months. And of course, there are vaccines available around the world from China and Russia too. Doctors say take whichever one you're offered first. John Terrett, CGTN, New York.
Earlier this week, China gave conditional approval to its first single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. It comes from domestic producer CanSino Biologics. Researchers say the jab can reach an efficacy of over 68% 14 days after it's administered. It doesn't need to be kept at super low temperatures.
With 2 new jabs approved this week, China now has 4 homegrown coronavirus vaccines. The single-dose CanSino vaccine, which is developed by the military scientist Chen Wei's team, has been conditionally authorized for public use, and Chen says it appears highly effective.
Our vaccine has been nearly 100% effective in preventing severe symptoms in Pakistan. And the severe illness protection rate from our trials worldwide is also more than 90%.
Apart from the efficacy rate, safety is another crucial part of vaccine assessment. And Chen says the CanSino jab has performed strongly on that key issue too.
So far, people who have received our vaccine, including those under extreme conditions, have reported no severe side effects. There were no other side effects that were different from other vaccines either.
As the country's only single-dose vaccine, the CanSino shot is suspected to be able to reach more people than vaccines that require 2 inoculations.
Our production capacity can reach 500 million this year. And as this is a one-shot vaccine, 500 million doses means 500 million people will be vaccinated, not 250 million.
Chen's work isn't finished yet. Her team continues to trace and analyze new virus variants to monitor the vaccine's effectiveness against them.
We are analyzing the data using our expertise in genetics and biology and diseases. And we are conducting experiments to examine the cross-reactions of vaccine against the variants first detected in Brazil, South Africa, and the UK.
Chen's team have already begun developing vaccines that specifically target virus variants. She says although they might never be needed, it's always better to be prepared.
More insight into that, let's cross live to Dr. Jerome Kim in Seoul. He's the Director General of the International Vaccine Institute. Thank you very much for joining us, Doctor. So we just heard words from China's leading scientist in developing this one-shot dose vaccine. Tell us what kind of technology is needed to make it happen?
So this vaccine is based on a virus called adenovirus type 5. A similar vaccine is being made or being used by the Gamaleya Institute in Russia, also based on actually two adenoviruses, adenovirus type 5 and adenovirus type 26. It's similar to other vaccines that have been tested, for instance, for HIV.
So what do we know about the single-dose vaccine's efficacy reports, especially its efficacy against those new and seems more dangerous variants reported around the world?
Yes, that's a great question. So, it turns out now that as we're looking at more and more data from many companies, it looks like there is a first dose effect, that many of the vaccines do offer protection after the first dose, and stronger protection, or perhaps longer lasting protection after the second dose. Two vaccines in particular, the vaccine from CanSino and the vaccine from Johnson & Johnson, were initially tested as single-dose vaccines. Again, the data are pretty clear that there is safety and efficacy after one dose. The question that remains, though, for both vaccines is, if a second dose were given, would the duration of protection be longer? And for those of us who are in, doing vaccine development, duration of protection is actually equally important, because I don't think people want to be vaccinated, every 6 months. And so we're hoping that the protective responses will last long enough for a booster shot to be delayed for at least a year, maybe longer. I think the other big question, and this was raised by the scientist from CanSino, how does this vaccine actually work against the mutant viruses that are circulating?
And another big question people ask a lot is about storage. We know, according to open reports so far, the Chinese single-dose vaccine can be stored at normal freezer temperatures for shorter-term storage. And this could be crucial for developing countries and even could be linked to the success of the COVAX mechanism. Tell us, should the world prepare more of this kind of vaccines?
So aside from the RNA vaccines, and even with the RNA vaccines, they're making progress at being able to store the vaccine at higher temperatures. Almost all the other vaccines are similar to this in that they can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. I think the important thing here, and you mentioned it, is getting this vaccine into the COVAX mechanism, which means that it first has to be reviewed and approved for emergency use by the World Health Organization. Other Chinese vaccines are awaiting that certification. With that certification, then CanSino's 500 million dose per year capacity can be added to the global mechanism for distributing the vaccine fairly and equitably around the world. That's COVAX.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jerome Kim in Seoul.